We're on the air.
All right, ladies and gentlemen, welcome back to another episode of the Orphans of Avraham every Thursday night, 8 o'clock Eastern New York Standard Time. Actually, I don't think we do 8 o'clock anymore. We do 9 o'clock Eastern Standard Time, so I apologize for that. This is probably going to be the second to the last episode. I think next week will be the last episode before Google decides to pretty much make Google Hangouts better than JC on Good Friday. They decided that the only one real good thing that they do is, no longer suitable for them. So that's the logic of Google. To be fair, Google does offer a good product that it is these Hangouts and the YouTube that, it connects us around the world. Nowhere in history could someone from New York, someone from Brazil, someone from Oklahoma, or somewhere from Israel can get together and talk a little Torah every week. And it's such a beautiful thing that this is it's the greatest time to be alive. And it's beautiful to just come together and talk a little Torah. I'm here with James, the idol smasher. He's our captain of the ship, of this beautiful Titanic ship that we're cruising on. I'm joking. Of course, this isn't the Titanic. We're more like the Hindenburg. No, I'm. But it's all good. James is an awesome guy. James runs an awesome show, and it's just wherever we go to after August, maybe a Discord server, maybe we can set something up on Discord, or maybe Zoom. I think people talk about Zoom as like some sort of program where people get together and talk and chat, and so that could be a streaming thing. We come together on Zoom, and then James will live stream it to his channel. So that could be an option. It depends on what Idol Smasher wants to do. I saw a post that said that he's pretty much quitting, that he's pretty much done, and that might be the thing. Maybe we'll just move on. 6-7 years of doing this. I've been doing this for pretty much 12 years.
The outreach is going to continue on I still want to do stuff and maybe interview, because Skype, you can get a couple people and maybe stream that or something. What I'm really going to miss about Hangouts was the interaction with a live audience. And that it was saved for posterity. And these great conversations, are stored, and you can go back and watch them, and presumably they'll still be there. But it was that interaction, that anybody could watch and go to a link and join in a conversation. That's what I'm going to miss the most. And I'm hoping once they get Meet and Chat and their other, facilities, apps, whatever, they get going, they do open something up for us on the consumer end, because it's the greatest thing they've done. The search engine's pretty good, or it was pretty good for a while, but this was a mind-blowing experience. It's been a ride. It really has. So I'm still going to study. I'd still like to get a study group together, but if we're going to produce something, I'd like to get the technology down correct. I'm about to move over to a Linux box, because Windows 7's going kaput in January, and I refused to upgrade, so I'm going to Linux. I'll be doing some changes on my end, but we can do something in the future. I just hope that we can find something as broad as the reach that YouTube has, and the reach that the people could come together and chat. That interaction, that live interaction with an audience. I'm going to miss that.
Yeah, it's a unique thing. Like I said, this is the only real platform. You had Yahoo Chats, you had Stickcam. That was nothing. Like you said, you didn't record the image and then put it up for posterity for later, and then you could interact with the audience. That was, this is a unique first thing ever to be done, and it's sad to go, but it's time to move on, and we'll make it. The Jewish people have been through Egypt, we've been through Babylon, we've been Rome. And where are those three people nowadays? So we're going to be able to make it. That's what I think, James.
Outreach. Go to John Gishle's channel as well, because we're going to be in touch always. Much more active doing outreach on here than I am, but I can't see myself not taking a Thursday night and studying. One way or another. If we can't do it live, we don't do it live for now. Move on to something later. But no, man, it's been a blast. I hope Brett King gets to stop by because that's the man. His Hangouts what made me want to do this. He and Joseph Campbell and Bill Moyer. Yeah, Brett was like Hangout Meister. His were the Hangout. That was the place to be on a Saturday night at like 11 o'clock at night here in Oklahoma City, 10 o'clock whatever. Man, that was the place everybody showed up to a Brett King Hangout. And it got rough, it was an environment that could cater to crazies too. Yeah, Brett Keen's
right. We used to have a guy called Steve Anderson or whatever his name was, and he believed that he was the reincarnation of Jesus Christ in the flesh. He legitimately believed that, and he was a wonderful guy. He's a nice guy. But he believed that he was JC. We had a few characters on Brett's program back in the day. I don't know where these people are anymore, or what they're doing with their life, but hopefully everyone's well and happy, and God's providing.
How you doing, Aaron? Welcome.
Shalom.
Shalom. Shalom.
When we first started this thing out, it was almost a dry study session. And everybody loved it. But it was pretty dry. I mean, we would read the Parsha all the way through, no matter how long it was.
And we did have different people that would come to that show. We had people that don't show up anymore. We don't have Bob. We don't have the other guy, the other two Noahides. Whatever, I forget their names.
Remember Douglas?
Yeah. That was Reuben's friend. And then we had the other two guys. Jacob was one of them. Jacob and his wife would come by. Yeah. And then the other guy. And once we went to try to expand our Judaism, I think try to connect to it more. They kind of bailed on us. They wanted to do just strictly Noahide, strictly Noahide, and it was like, man, come on,
Yeah.
Yeah. All right, I'm sending Brett an email right now, and I do have my tablet open. So if anyone has a question or comment on the live stream, I'll make sure to read it. Is the background noise too bad? Can you hear the kids and the TV and everything?
Once in a while you get low, but I think automatically compressing your signal so the noise doesn't come through.
All right, I'll mute when I'm
fine. No noise. What are we doing here? I'm going to check the Hangouts box. All right. I'm done with that. We got a Parsha this week. Let's talk Parsha. That's what we do with these things. By the way, if you're listening...
What Parsha are we on, by the way?
Huh?
What Parsha are we on?
I thought it was... Balak? I thought it was
Balak.
Yeah. Lucas was last week. So, yeah, Balak. That's where we're at. See, I'm prepared. I'm prepared tonight, y'all.
Now, Balak, it's an interesting question about Balak. From what I know about him, he was a king, and he had a vendetta against Israel. He wanted to exterminate the Jewish people, or whatever, the Hebrew, the Israelite, whatever you want to name them. And he paid a couple of shekels to a prophet named Balaam. And they were under the assumption that they could pray to the God of Israel, the God of the Hebrews, to kill the Hebrews, to kill Israel, to wipe them out. I found that interesting. I always found that a little, just from just not reading into it and studying and learning more about it. It's just interesting that's sort of. Even the ass says, what are you doing? Even the donkey starts talking to him like, what are you, some Schmendrick? You think you're going to be able to, Even Balaam says eventually to Balak, hey, look, you want me to say words? I can only say what God allows me to say. I mean, even he knows, look, if God doesn't allow it, if it's not written in the stars, it's not going to happen, I'm only a prophet. I mean,
I always saw this story as kind of a figurative look at blasphemy, because on a technical sense, what gets you, the death penalty, what makes you, a Chayei Misa is using God's name to curse God. I'm not going to get into the depths of that because it's not something we need to discuss. But on a technical level, that's what blasphemy is when you use the name of God to curse God, which is just, it's like, what are you thinking? Why? So when I hear about, when Balak or whatever, he's like, he wants to call out the God of Israel to destroy Israel. But it's like blasphemy. That's what blasphemy is.
Right, and even Balaam the prophet, even though he was a sorcerer and he practiced black magic, and he was sort of like the evil opposite of Avraham. See, Avraham and Balaam were no different than each other. They were actually the carbon copy. They both rode donkey. It says that Avraham woke up early in the morning before the sunrise and prayed. He prayed between between night and between the dawn, like right that intermediate time when it's not exactly light, when it's not exactly dark anymore. Dusk, I guess it's called in English. And he would pray to God, and apparently that's what he was known for. And he would saddle his donkey and pray and ask for good things and do mitzvahs and get his day started right. Balaam did the same thing. He saddled his donkey, quote unquote, saddled his donkey in the morning, and he would also pray and sort of worship God in that dusk part of time. And so he would do the aveiros, he would do sins, not necessarily mitzvahs. So he would manipulate. He thought he could manipulate the situation. So his perspective is, so the way I learn it is that use things that may be to twist things the way it is. Like we all has. Man, how can I put this, James? Help me out. What's the word?
Well, if wisdom descends, and you're an improper vessel, you're going to poison that wisdom, or you're going to add something to it and make it your own. Is that what you're saying?
I think that was a good way of explaining it. Right.
You're filtering wisdom into.
He could be a receptacle for whatever that was being channeled, but because he himself was sort of unkosher, to use the term, the bracha, the blessings became unkosher.
Oh, I think you cut out.
No, I was finished. If what you can disseminate godliness, like you can receive, anyone can connect to Hashem. I think this is another message of what this is saying. Anyone, a Jew, a Gentile. Balaam wasn't a Jew; he was a Gentile, but he was a prophet, right?
Yep.
I mean, that's what the Torah says. But he was a Rasha. So even Rashim, even the wicked, even people who practice witchcraft and black magic and voodoo or whatever he was known for, his shtick, he too could receive the message of God, Hashem. So it's daunting to kind of like, wow, like it is what it is. You everything comes from God, no matter what it is. And that's another message, a second message, that yes, you can channel, you can receive God, and you never is too far gone either. I mean, if he can do it, why can't you? You can never be so far gone. I mean, hopefully, God willing, no one will ever be as bad as Balaam. But it's never too late.
I find that whole thing interesting because if you just take the Torah, at the simple text that's there, you have this religious guy. He's a non-Jewish religious guy that believes in God, and this king comes to him and says, hey, here's some money. Will you curse these people? And he goes to God and he says, hey, God, this guy's offering me money to curse these people. And God says no. And he's like, okay. And so he goes back and says no. And then they offer him more money. But then you get outside. So like just from the Torah's perspective, right? Balaam is not really an evil guy. He's just, quite possibly could be like a God-fearing man. But when you get outside of the Torah and you get into Midrashim and, all these types of things, then all of a sudden it's, Balaam the Rasha, and he becomes this wicked, evil, horrible man. And I think sometimes we can miss the simple story that's right there in the text that says, there was this God-fearing man who got dissuaded by money, and he went off, he went to continue to pester God until God finally just was like, all right, if you want to do it, do it. And he just kind of just went with it, kind of like if you nag your wife about something and finally she's like, fine, just do it. Well, if you do it, you don't have that, you don't have that satisfaction within you, right? Because you got your way, but what you really wanted is you wanted your wife to like agree with it and go along with you and be a part of it, not just be like, all right, just do it. So
well, Balaam wasn't complicit. I agree with what you're saying, but he was still an active an active anti-Semite, whatever you want to call it, God hater. Whatever the terminology is, anti-Israel. But you're right. According to the story, literally, it could have been in different 80%, and then only 10% bad, right? I get what you're saying. It's only the midrash that adds on to this stuff. Yeah, you're right.
Which is fine. I don't have any, problem with the addition. I think it's just, there's more. It just adds more to the perspective, and I think that it's easy to look just at the one perspective because so much of the midrashim and customs and there's this whole thing that's just based around, Balaam being a wicked, evil person. So,
what's interesting is that Balaam's prophecy is written on most synagogues. Most synagogues will have the first verse of his supposed curse, but it was really a bracha. So one thing that Hasidim teach. Now this isn't mainline Judaism. This isn't like modern Orthodoxy. Like someone like Rabbi Asher Mazer would be against this, but bad doesn't really happen in the Bible. There's no such thing as evil or bad or cursing. So what Balaam said, even though most people take it as a curse, it's considered a bracha from a Hasidic point of view, and a lot of synagogues will have the verse, his first line written in Hebrew on their synagogues on the roof. If you ever notice that, what's the verse that you would greatly multiply in the house, that the house of Jacob would multiply, or something? I forget what exactly the verse is, but it will have it on the shuls.
I'll be darned.
Give us the first line of the curse, James. What is the exact? Because Balaam actually, at the end of his prophecy, at the end of his supposed cursing of Israel, he even recognizes that it's not really a curse, that it's a bracha, that he actually blessed the Jewish people, or Hebrew people, Israelites, or whatever you want to term, Black Hebrew, or whatever the terminology is.
Okay, Balaam said to Balak, build me 7 altars. He built 7 altars. Why would it be 7? God happened upon Balaam, and he said to him, I have prepared the 7 altars and built up a ram, or a bull and a ram on each altar. Hashem put an utterance in Balaam's mouth and said, go back to Balak, and thus shall you say. He returned to Israel, he returned to him, and behold, he was standing by his burnt offering, and all the officers of Moab. He declaimed this parable and said, from Aram, Balak, king of Moab, led me from the mountains of the east. Come, curse Jacob for me. Come, bring anger upon Israel. How can I curse? God is not cursed. How can I anger? Hashem is not angry. From its origins, I see it rock-like. From its hills do I see it. Behold, it is a nation that will dwell in solitude and not be reckoned among the nations. We who counted the dust of Jacob or numbered are a quarter of Israel. May my soul die in the death of the upright, and may my end be like this. Why have you done this to me? Curse my enemy. He spoke and said, I did not. It is not so. Whatever Hashem puts in my mouth, I must take heed to speak. So that's what he said.
Yeah, how can I say anything other than what God wants me to say? You're telling me to say bad things about Israel. Is it possible to ask God that I shall give a bracha to hate God? You know what I mean? Like, you know what I'm saying? This is chutzpah. What's interesting, I don't think people really realize this, is that when people try to disprove God, I don't know if you noticed this, James. You tell me what you think about this. Most atheists or most non-believers or whatever, people who hate God and stuff, or hate the Bible, the first thing they try to do to disprove God is try to explain or try to prove that Moses didn't exist, or that Israel were never slaves in Egypt, or prophets, or Adam and Eve is false. So there's no global flood of Noah. There's no possible. They don't really hit God, right? Their argument isn't that God exists because of some scientific argument against God. Their argument is that whether characters in the book are true or not. What does that have to do with the price of tea of China? So it's kind of interesting. It's almost like the same mentality. It's like Balak, this king, is like saying, like, he doesn't get it. Like, he just doesn't really understand. I'm going to ask God. I'm going to go to God and ask God to disprove God. Or, you know what I'm saying?
Yeah.
Like, this is what he said, basically saying. I mean, it doesn't make any sense. I don't know. I'm rambling. But that's usually the people I do the little debates once in a while, and people get to me, oh, God doesn't exist. Why would he allow slavery in the Bible? Like, okay, whether or not there's slavery in the Bible, how does that have to do with God existing? You can have God not existing, you know what I'm saying, without disproving the Bible. I mean, the Bible, but that's what they do. They attack the Bible. I mean, people don't have a leg to stand on. So, as we can learn here, even anyone can connect to God. You know what I mean? Like, you know what I'm saying? There's some regular guy, like Aaron says, there's some guy that got a couple of shekels. Could even understand that, God's God and everything's going to work out exactly the way it's supposed to. Divine providence.
He does kind of have a feather in the wind quality about him, doesn't he? Balaam. He does kind of be. He's flighty. He's kind of or for me, he comes off to be a bit flighty. Just going where the road takes him, kind of a thing, or whatever. He just kind of very little conviction. I just don't see it. I do want to point out for all our friends out there of a nature that might not understand the whole Satan thing. This Parsha, this today in Bamidbar, Numbers, chapter 22. This is where Satan shows up for the first time. You might think I'm saying Satan or Satan is in like the character, but I'm saying this is the first time the word Satan, shows up in the Bible, period. If some argue that the book of Job was older than the written Torah, and there is the adversary, there is a character, but this is the first time that we get an adversary, the word, anywhere in Torah. If I can get right there. Okay, here it is. God's wrath flared because of what he was doing, and an angel of Hashem stood in the road to impede him. Stood in the road as an adversary. He took an angel and made it an adversary to man. And it goes on with there. He was riding his she-donkey. Wonder why they call it a she-donkey. We can get into that later if you want. That's why he's not that great of a guy, if you go by the commentary. The she-donkey saw the angel, but Balaam didn't. Struck the donkey, and then the donkey talks to him. How humiliating is this? The donkey becomes Moses to Balaam. And of course, eventually talks to him. But yeah, this is, if you want to look at this Satan dude, or this Satan, Satan, this is the first time it shows up. And it's an angel of God under God's command, under God's control. doing what he's supposed to do. He's not a separate entity. Don't give the adversary too much credit. That's all I'm saying. That's Numbers 22, starts with verse 22 as well. That's the first time we get Satan. Just to be a thorn in the side, a tree on the line, if you will, in the path of man.
Oh, yeah, it's interesting. Once you learn how to, the kosher definitions of these words, what a kosher definition of Mashiach is, Messiah. Once you know a kosher definition of Satan, once you know what a kosher definition of deity is, God is, then eventually the pieces fall into place. You'll understand. And it is what it is. And we do have Mr. President Donald Trump himself in the room. Wow.
Hey, what's up, my man?
Baruch Hashem.
Hey, how you doing?
Doing great. Good to see you.
Good to see you too. Hey, how come you guys, just out of curiosity, how come you guys don't ever put your cameras on?
John's on camera. He's got some art. Here's me.
Yeah, I see that. I see that. Okay, I see.
Sometimes I have kids who come in the room, and I might have to get up and something.
Oh, there you are, my man.
Yeah, I don't like to be on camera much, but I may put together this nice little background.
There he is.
I spent a little time in Photoshop, and I'm using XSplit, so I got like a little fancy setup here. I got the video playing in the background. It's supposed to be like different views of Israel throughout different locations. So
yeah, I gotcha. Hey, I always appreciate being invited to this exclusive group, by the way, because it's a great refresher from your typical Google Hangouts. That's what it is. You guys are always civil and nice and smart, and you have intelligent things to say, and you're not trying to trigger anybody. You're not trying to troll. You're just like legit. You're good peoples.
Right.
Good peoples. In general.
Well, the other hangouts are usually zoos. That's how I usually refer to them as zoos with the zookeeper, the little boxes as individual cages where people are in.
That's a good way of putting it. That's actually a good way of putting it. Yes, sir. So before I so rudely interrupted, what do we got on the docket today, gentlemen?
We're talking Parshas Balak. About the king who sends the prophet Balaam to curse Israel with and the drama that goes on there. Another one of my all-time favorite lines in discussing things with missionaries who like to come in here and tell me how mediocre I am. One of my favorite lines for missionaries is in Numbers 23. This is verse 19. God is not a man that he should be deceitful, nor the son of man that he should relent. Excuse me. What he say and not do, or speak and not confirm. And that's one of my all-time favorites, right there. God is not a man. God is not the son of man.
But a lot of
a man of whom the
Torah. James said the chapter and verse thing in Torah is actually completely man-made, Christian-made. Actually, you can thank the Christians that they put in Torah the chapter and verse. But you can read just simply the statement "God is not a man" on its own. You don't have to read it as "God is not a man that he shall lie, nor is he a son of man that he shall relent." That's completely artificial. It's an artificial construct.
I don't know if you guys have heard the Christian response to that verse that he just read, but if you look at the Hebrew, what you're going to see is twofold. First, it says "son of a man," son of a man. If you look deeper into the Hebrew, it says "son of a man," as opposed to "son of man," which there are other verses that talk about the son of man will do this, the son of man will do that. That particular verse that he just quoted, if you look deeper in the Hebrew, it says "son of a man." So that's the first thing. And then there was a second thing, and I think it was going off of what you just said there, John. What did you said? You said something.
Well, in Exodus 15:3, God is called a man of war, and it actually uses the Hebrew word "man" right there. So, them using the word "man," there's some loose usage they have when it comes to that word.
Well, the Torah makes a lot of anamorphic language. God is. It says that God took us out of Egypt with a strong arm and
Yeah,
Right.
a strong
where's
hand and
the
outreach
arm?
arm.
Right. Right.
Be
Does
this
God
big
have arms
giant
and legs?
arm.
I mean,
Right,
Yeah,
right.
I mean, a man of war is actually a phrase, and that was Moses, but God never says I'm a man. But when I'm not a man, he's not the son. And I found the word. It's
And Jacob called God a man. He said,
Naba.
Jacob called God a man when he was wrestling. He called that man he was wrestling God.
The man wrestles with God. He was an angel. He was,
Yeah, but if it was an angel, then I mean, it depends on.
Yeah, but he said, "This is where I saw the face of God," and
That
there
could
was a
be
man he
divine.
was wrestling.
That
I'm
could be.
just saying, there's loose usage with
yeah,
that.
his dream. Well, when you're speaking of a dream, and that was his dream. That's one thing. Saying God is a man is kind of a hard, or a son of man. Let's just not even say man, but a son of man, or a man, a son of a man, whatever.
a biological person.
Yeah, it makes no sense.
I think
In
the argument I'm making is, and I don't speak Hebrew. I have to use a lexicon to read this stuff. So by the way, I'm not a scholar or anything. But using my lexicon, I did look up these verses, and I don't have it right in front of me. Feel free to do your own individual research. But what I learned is that son of a man and son of man. It's that
There are two
it's
different
that
terms.
word
You're right.
a that makes you immortal, right? And the son of man is used in prophecies about the Messiah.
Right. Elijah uses the term "son of man shall come in the clouds."
Correct.
It's
Right.
it's as a prophetic term.
the
Right.
the word in Hebrew is no. I think it's no ben Adam or na ben Adam. You would know maybe more, maybe John.
Right. Adam, as in the a higher form of man instead of using ish. Sometimes man is referred to as ish. Just the regular everyday person. It could be
Yeah,
referred to as a
on that
goy.
man of war passage, it uses ish.
Yeah.
Right. Right. So it's just like a regular guy of like a warrior with a sword.
Right.
But I'm not
And
sure.
that's what I'm
No.
saying. You got to make sure some things don't get lost in translation when we talk about these subjects, because I don't know if any of you speak ancient Hebrew, but I sure don't. That's why I use a lexicon.
Yeah, I learned biblical Hebrew. I'm still learning biblical Hebrew.
Is that ancient? Is it
Usually, when
Hebrew?
it's referred to as ish, it could be just a regular everyday Joe Schmo. Adam usually means when the word Adam is used, it usually means like a fellow Hebrew, in the sense that they're one in the same as opposed to like a foreigner.
What I want
So
to know, it's a prefix because it's nun. It's nun bet nun. It's no ben, and then a dash, which is not even in there, but there's a dash, and then it says Adam. So it's no ben Adam. That would be the son of man or a son of man. I guess no.
It's an indicator that it's saying we, like Elokeinu. The nu gets dropped, it gets put in the front, and it's a future tense to the word. So it's like saying we will be the sons, or we are going to be the sons of a man. So it's like a multiple future tense that noon in front does to the word ben.
Okay.
Oh, that's interesting.
The
Yeah.
future descendants of men, maybe.
Well, either way, I always encourage people to, because I don't speak ancient Hebrew, and there's also some Aramaic there that you have to go through. A lexicon is really good for that stuff, and you get commentaries from Jewish scholars and Christian scholars and everybody in between. These scholars, they do actually understand ancient Hebrew, and they can talk about the context and the verbiology of it. The only thing that I remember reading is that son of a man. This is a term that's used in the Old Testament. It's used in the Hebrew Bible many times, and son of man is also used. But there is a little bit of different phraseology when you're talking about messianic prophecies versus somebody who is born not messianically speaking. You know, so these are things that are kind of important if we're going to separate messianic text from non-messianic text.
It's pretty easy in Judaism. You've got Torah and the world, and it's got to jibe with Torah in Judaism. That's pretty much how you got to, how we look at it.
Yeah, and I agree with that.
Brother John,
it does have to jive with Torah. I agree with you 100%.
Absolutely. William, shalom. Brother John, it's good to see you, man. Can you believe this little thing's coming to an end?
Yeah, who knows? Maybe not.
You going back to Brazil there, John? But you still be able to do this in Brazil, right, John?
Well, Hangouts is officially going away.
Oh.
August 1st. That's what we're talking about.
Oh, okay, I got you.
Google Hangout.
Yeah, this is going away in August. This is the next to last Hangout, man. Now they've got it.
I think you still be able to use Hangouts Chat and Me, paid service, like $6 a month.
Yeah, I don't know. We'll see how that works out first. If something comes up on the consumer end that can broadcast live and have interaction with people, I am more than interested. That was the great thing about this. Not only do we get to talk to each other worldwide in real time, but you interact with that's 10 people, up to 10 people interacting with the viewing public at large. I mean, what a freaking tastic piece of technology we've been able to play with here, to use. Thanks, Google.
Yeah.
Right. They're going to get rid of the one thing that people like them for.
Yeah, the one.
You know what? It's kind of like I'll believe it when I see it, because I remember they were saying they were shutting it down like in 2017, and I was like, so once it happens, then I'll believe it. They keep saying it.
The past 2 times I've opened up a Hangout, like tonight when I go live, a link pops up where the live button is up top of the screen, and gives you youtube.com. If you're interested, Google Hangouts On Air will no longer be something August 1st. So
why are they shutting it down? I guess that's the question.
They've streamlined it for corporate stuff. I don't know about the rest of it though. I don't know. They're not giving
that's actually a common technique. First, make it easy to use, and then once you got enough users, then put in a profit for it. I mean, that's how YouTube did it. So first, YouTube was so open, anybody could get on there and they could monetize, and you had all these YouTube streams opening up. And then once they felt like they had enough users, then they started to close it off a bit. You got to pay this and you got to pay that if you want to keep using it. But if you're not trying to monetize, then you can still be just like some random user to get viewers, because that's your advertisement money. I mean, this is something it's just a normal corporate model. You start out making it super easy, super open, but then eventually you gotta bring in all this extra stuff to satisfy the investors. So.
Now, Brother John, do you know whether or not this Google Meet paid version is that able to be streamed to the YouTube?
That's the thing that's still in question. I put a link on the side here, which is still kind of confusing, because it seems like nothing really is changing too much. But There's a link on the side. Maybe that'll help.
I appreciate it.
Because you might have to use a third party. Who knows? As far as I know, YouTube Live with the chat on the side is still going.
Yeah, you can stream your own webcam. So if you can be a server to 3 or 4 people at once, you could, I guess, you could do it on YouTube, webcam. Wouldn't you? Maybe.
Yeah.
I guess you could have a Skype call going and someone would just stream it to their YouTube channel.
And some people have been doing chats like on Discord and then streaming them through YouTube Live. Yeah.
So what's next in the chopping block? What's next?
What's next?
But left.
Pretty big awards.
I don't know. I talked about the 2 things I wanted to bring up in the Parsha tonight. Go curse every time I curse. I mean, it's funny. It's if you don't think that the Torah has a sense of humor. Isaiah, I think it was Isaiah. Was it Elijah? Oh, who was it? He was making a fire. Was it Elijah? He built the fire and they challenged the other guy's God to the burnt offering. That was hilarious. This is hilarious right now. Balaam has a she-donkey. Ever wonder why they have to refer to it as a she-donkey? Anybody who doesn't know want to harbor a guess?
He used to go Welsh on it.
Yep.
What?
Yeah.
What? What? Welsh. Wait, somebody in the Bible's doing a donkey? Is that what you're saying?
He had a marital relationship with his donkey. He loved his donkey.
Isaiah? Who is it? I'm sorry.
That's what commentators say. It is
in this week's Torah portion. It talks about the prophet Balaam donkey. That in the verse it says that the donkey talked out of the ass. I'm sorry. Yeah, the donkey spoke, and the commentary says that this man Balak used to make love, sweet, wonderful love to this donkey.
Cool, kind of Welsh.
And that's why it was talking a lot. It was like a wife.
You sure it wasn't a furry?
It could have been a furry,
Maybe it was a furry.
Well, speaking of talking about your ass, I mean, I don't know what's happening right now.
No, that's why I said she-ass, which kind of gives you a little more insight.
Okay.
It's a different world, so, we can judge him harshly, but with maybe a laugh. This is the kind of guy, we're talking about here, and even he could be used for good. Was used for good. I mean, even pervs know when God is and is not. Where,
Yeah, clear out of town. Just send this guy in.
Oh man.
Oh boy.
Oh boy.
It got rated R.
You're talking about the prophet Isaiah?
What prophet Balaam?
Who was it? Which prophet challenged another prophet to a burnt offering? Was it Elijah? Golly,
I remember that story also.
But he's like, where's your God? Come on, maybe yell louder, he'll hear you. Maybe he's on the bathroom.
No, that was
what?
Elijah.
I'm sorry.
That was Elijah.
Maybe he's on the pot. Maybe he's on the toilet. That's funny. Come on.
Yeah, I do recall that story. But are you talking about Elijah or Isaiah? Are you saying Elijah was having sex with donkeys or what?
No, I said if you don't think that Torah has a sense of humor, or that God doesn't have a sense of humor, this story, in my opinion, is funny as all get out.
Yeah.
It's hilarious, in my opinion. And another instance was, another one that's just boldface,
I'm still confused. Like, which prophet are we talking about? And I'm not trying to
It's a
be rude.
prophet in the Torah. It says Balak. He was a Gentile prophet who who was hired by the king of Balak to curse Israel, and it says that he would saddle his donkey. It said that he used to make sweet love to his she ass. That's how he would get his prophecy. That's what it says.
Okay.
That's how the Torah words it.
Okay.
Not a man of great character.
He challenged somebody.
No, they were two different stories.
Donald, you're losing. Okay, Donald, don't worry about it. Settle down, Donald. We'll move on. Donald doesn't get it. Okay.
Is it she ass or her ass?
Okay.
Right, that's why it's called harassment. Harassment. What do you think it means?
I still have no idea what we're talking about.
All right. Let's move on. Some people can't handle it.
Okay, if that's what it is.
What's next on the chopping block? Walsk? Why don't you give us the next...
anything in the Parsha, you, Aaron, Brother John, if you're interested, anything in the Parsha, any Torah, you want to add? The blessings or...
I didn't hear the Parsha, so.
Oh, yeah.
All right, anything in the news? There was once a man named the Baal Shem Tov, and he believed that the world's current events would mimic the Torah, that you could kind of, read the weekly Parsha study and sort of see events that happen in current events unfold, if that makes any sense. So does anyone have or can relate something that happened to their life or maybe in the news that mimics this week's Torah portion? I know I can give an example. Speaking of, she asks talking, we do have the four congresswomen who are who like to spew a lot of nonsense. That could be a connection. I'm joking, of course.
Yeah, those four congresswomen they are ridiculous. I'm sorry. If somebody says to you, if you don't like where you're at, you're welcome to leave. How is that racist? How is that any way involved with your skin color? That's mind-boggling to me.
Because the guy who said it was of lighter skin than the four women he was talking about. He didn't even mention names. Remember, all he said was these communists and who do nothing but complain and hate America and Israel, they can always leave. Then they showed up at a press conference the next day and let the world know who he was talking about.
Right.
Yeah.
It's mind-boggling to me because if somebody says just in a vacuum, if you don't like where you're at, you can leave. There's no racism. But once you insert, it was said in the context of the United States, and it was said in the context of these four minority women, now it's racist. Well, you're telling me that I have to look at their skin color and I have to look at the United States to know that it's racist? But if it was said in a vacuum, then it's not racist. You're the one bringing in the skin color. You're the one bringing in these other factors. You're not just looking at the four corners of what he said. You're bringing in all these other factors to try to say, it was racist. It was racist. No, he never mentioned skin color. It's not racist. And they took a vote in the Congress. to decide if it was racist or not. This happened. They took a vote in the Congress to decide if it was racist. And it went down. They voted that it's not racist. But they took a damn vote to decide if it's racist.
Yeah.
This stuff.
That's just the current state of politics in the United States, that they have to take votes in Congress whether someone's tweets are
racist or not. Right.
They're wanting to use Israel to curse Israel is what they're doing. Because after all this stick went down, Omar went and donated to BDS or something.
Oh, that's a good connection.
Yeah, I mean, come on. I mean, they keep trying. All they're doing is making themselves look like the asses they are.
Right.
Man, we're coming to an end. I think we're coming to an end of this BS.
Oh my goodness! It's
well, we had
That's
2 years of
the connection right there. She asked.
Yeah.
Yep.
Walter, that's there's an old saying: a day late and a dollar short. Thank you for finally getting a good on the joke there. I'm busting your balls now.
No, but you're right. You're still 100% right.
Yeah.
Yeah. For she asked.
It took him a second to process what we were talking about.
Took me a minute.
I only opened the discussion with that joke, Oh yeah,
she was asked. They blatantly asked her, "Do you condemn the attack on the ICE facility in Seattle, wherever it was?" And she didn't answer. And I'm like, for Pete's sakes, stop and say salam. Stop for the cameras, for the country. They want to hear you say, "Of course it's wrong that they did that. We should never resort to something like that. The man died because of it. Of course they don't condemn terrorism." That's what I said. Why are you asking? She could have gotten indignant and had every right to. So who do you think I am? She could have stood up for herself, and she had the opportunity, and she didn't. That's too bad, man. When you I don't know, and all the anti-Israeli stuff and that BDM or BDS, whatever, the boycott, divestment, Jew hate. It's the Jew hate group. It's the last politically correct Jew hate group left. You got rid of the PLO. This is. I mean, that's what it is. Jew hate.
Yeah, basically boils down to it. It boils down to it's Jew hate, but it's also a concept of individual liberty, religious tolerance, freedom of speech, and all of these things are intertwined, right? Because in Judeo-Christian values, I know you guys are Jews, I'm a Christian, but in those shared values, there's a concept of acknowledging the individual. You acknowledge the individual, right? It's the acknowledgement of the individual that makes up Judeo-Christian law, right? It's the whole concept of an eye for an eye and a tooth for a tooth, right? The lex talionis that makes up the whole concept of the law, right? The justice is that if you have done this to this person, you owe that person the damages that you caused them because they are a human being just like you are.
Yep.
The whole concept of the individual is deeply woven into the concept of liberty and justice. And
Torah is a definite anti-slavery document.
Yes, absolutely.
Lady Liberty's crushing shekels under her feet.
Yep, absolutely
Shackles.
it is.
Shackles, not shekels, shackles.
Yeah, absolutely it is. And the whole concept is what's happening here is they're trying to get away from individual liberty because they want a government-run, centralized way of running the economy, running people's lives, as opposed to an entire world where the individual gets to decide. The individual just gets to decide for themselves, right? And you voluntarily exchange goods. You voluntarily take on a job, and the job owner voluntarily hires you. It's all a voluntary system that respects the individual's choice, right? And by the way, this is what's ironic is when they say the individual's choice, they say, "Oh, so are you pro-choice?" And I say, "Absolutely. I want every woman to have complete control of her body." But you need to first define where her body begins and ends. So, for example, a woman's body has 10 fingers, not 20 fingers. A woman's body has 10 toes, not 20 toes. A woman's body has one heartbeat, not two heartbeats. A woman's body has one set of DNA, not two sets of DNA. So I'm all for pro-choice of the woman getting to decide what she does with her body. Just define where her body begins and where her body ends. These concepts of individual liberty are just so basic. They're so basic, but there's this whole political view that just wants to corrupt it all. It's crazy to me, and I've talked for probably a little bit too much.
It's all good. You can ramble on as much as you want. Idle Smash is sending me love letters on the side here. You rock, John.
Rojo got us Elijah making fun of Baal. First Kings 8.
Okay.
You both rock. I mean, here I'll write one to.
Thank you, sir. You rock too.
You rock. There we go.
You rock.
You know, and to ramble a bit more, I think what happens is once you give people their individual liberty, there's a large group of people or a small group of people, whatever you happen to have, who demonstrate that they can't handle their own choices. And then they become victims as a result of bad choices, right? And some of them are legitimate victims. I'm not going to say that everybody is not legitimate. There are some legitimate victims. But once you're on the hunt for victims, your whole perspective is no longer individual liberty. Your whole perspective is, I need to find victims to protect. I need to find victims to protect. I need to find victims to protect. And what you end up doing in that is you come up with a political philosophy that decides that you need to rob other people of their liberty in order to protect all the people. So you're constantly looking for more victims.
That's actually what real bigotry is. This idea, this notion, this communist notion that we're all part of the collective, that we're all part of this one group, and that there is no individuality.
Correct.
Right? You're sort of erasing you as a person and basically grouping everyone into groups, and this guy's part of this group and you're part of that group. And so that's real collectivism, socialism, communism, whatever you want to call it, is the ultimate form of bigotry, hateful racism, whatever you want to really call it. That's really the problem. That's really it. If that's how you see people, right? If you see someone as part of this group and that group, that's instead of just as an individual, as the way you should look at it.
You're not seeing your creator in their eyes because they're collective. You've dehumanized them into a gestalt.
Right.
There is a sense of collectivism, though, but it's I think communism tends to try to divide, though, because if you got blacks over here, you got whites over here, Hispanics over here, that's not really the collective. What they've destroyed is the collective United States, like Americans. When you come here, you're supposed to be an American, and there's a sense of a collective when you're talking about the nation of Israel. So there's a balance. It's a good balance between the two, between individuality, but also understand that you are part of the greater, people of Israel or of the United States for that matter.
Right. I mean, that basically, I think a few parshias ago, we learned that, it says that the encampment of Israel couldn't sojourn in the desert, that the Jewish people, Israel, couldn't get up and leave to the next destination in the wilderness unless everyone was part of the encampment. So in a sense, yes, you are an individual and you gave your half shekel to be counted, and that's how they counted people as individuals. A half a shekel was given. But yet at the same time, if one person was missing, they couldn't advance their progress. They couldn't advance to the next destination. So there, like you said, William Walsh, you go by so many names, Will, Yov. So there is the healthy, as you say. I think the terminology you use, the healthy balance of the two.
Absolutely. I mean, one law John was talking about, it's just 21 of the slave moment. That's one law for all. The slave is the first in civic law. The slave is mentioned first because you have to start with the lowest, desperate, the despotic. I don't know the word to say for it. The bums, if you will, people down on their luck have rights starting out.
Right. To me, that's a revolutionary concept. I think the way the Torah deals with masters and slaves is a very, very can I say this? A complete I mean, it was like a revolutionary idea. This idea, the concept that a slave had rights, and I think they use that term. I think the terms slave and master are really sort of dubious because that's kind of they're not exactly real category terms. I mean, to me, I think it should be more like the employer and the employee, the worker and the person that's hired. Because that's just the colloquial terms of the day: slave, owner, master. That's just how they colloquially spoke. So really, it came down to employee rights. This is the Torah is giving us the very first example of workers' rights. This is a revolutionary liberal thing that actually your worker that you're paying, that you're hiring, actually you can't beat him. You know what I mean? You can't actually just treat him like complete dog shit. Okay, I mean,
employee,
or even the guy who stole from you. No,
well, Brother John, I mean, in a sense, Brother John, yes, in a way, you are being bought. When you're paid to work at a job, your 8 hours of the day is that person's 8 hours of the day. Technically speaking, you can't be on your phone watching Facebook. You know, you can't technically watch the NBA. You're sort of under contract.
You're under contract. That's the
difference. This person.
A slave and a servant are two different things, and that is because one is contracted, and more often than not, it's legal. For instance, if you steal, and you have to you pay twice back to the guy you stole from, you become his property, but you still have rights. Even that guy who's a criminal, convicted, and serving a sentence has rights. So you're getting criminal rights.
How do you have total freedom if you're somebody's property?
You are freed every 7 years. That was the point.
I heard a rabbi say, I think it was Rabbi Daniel Lappin, said that the word for employee and the word for drunk in Hebrew are the exact same 3 letters. Meaning that when you're drunk, right, you're giving away some of your free choice, right? Your inhibitions are gone. Same thing as an employee. You know, you have to, I mean, not everyone does it, but of course, if you don't follow what your boss tells you to do, you're not going to have the job for very long. So you're giving up, some of your freedoms.
Right. And the whole concept is it's acknowledgement of the individual because it's a voluntary exchange. I'm saying that, that I'm going to pay this money and I'm expecting something in exchange for the money. You're saying, I will do this in exchange for the money, right? So there's a voluntary exchange here, right? I'm going to the employer and I'm saying, I'm going to work for you. You're going to pay me. Okay, great. Now, if you don't keep up your end of the contract, how should the person paying you feel? They're going to feel robbed. They're going to feel like I worked for this money and now I'm paying it to you and you're not doing what you agreed to do, right? This is a voluntary exchange, right? And a voluntary exchange acknowledges the individual, both the employer and the employee. It acknowledges them both, and that they both have to shake hands and agree to the services rendered and exchanged for. Right. This is acknowledgement
I think it's
of the
bullshit.
individual.
What you're saying, I think, is BS. That from what I'm reading the script, from what I'm reading in the scripture, I'm not seeing that at all. I'm seeing a person buying another person. It's their property for 6 years. Then you can go free.
Right.
So for 6 years, you're not free. And then he's got all kinds of rights to beat their servants, up till death. And so I don't see this as any. I don't know how you compare this to the employer-employee relationship.
That's the difference between, and it says servants, that should be slave, because there are two different. I don't know the Hebrew right off the top of my head, but
I think you're talking about an
indentured.
I think you're talking about an indentured servant when you're talking about it, which is different. That's like a credit card, man. If you owe money, you got to pay it back. So you're basically working for that bank. You're not working for yourself. You got to pay the bill. I mean, if If you're an honest person, you're paying the bills. So,
or if you're destitute and you say, look, I will do anything for you, sir. I will wash your windows. I will clean your gutters. I am destitute. And this man says, okay. And it doesn't have to be 7 years. It could be for a year. There's no requirement that it has to be a slavery for life. But yeah, you will. And it's not unlike a movie contract like Elvis went into, or that you hear people like journalists. You can't quit. You're under contract. The law can force you to work for me because you made a contract to me. And that's where the slave is someone you have to work for this guy. It's either you made an agreement that I do this and this for you. You clothe me. You house me. You rest me on Shabbat. You treat me as one of your own, and I will bust my ass for you. That's different. That you go into that, but it's not. You want to get people out of slavery. That's why slaves are freed every 7 years. Even the Ger Toshavim are freed every 50, and they don't even have an inheritance in Israel. It's all about getting people out of debt. You want to bring them out of being destitute. Well, shoot, I got some money. I need work done. I'll give you a job. I need a guy driving my truck in my gravel company. You could drive this little truck here. I'll give you a job. I'll help. And that's how and it might seem harsh in Torah, the way it's spoken of in the Torah, very harshly. But when you look at the actual law, when God says, do what the judges say, when the judges work out a system, is all you have to do to be freed. The master can put tefillin on you, and you are free, and nobody can own you. I mean, there are so many ways to get out of slavery. It's so easy. It's not even funny. It's never meant to be like American slavery or the slave trade of the Portuguese and Spaniards.
Right.
Yeah. And that did happen. Don't get me wrong. But that's what God freed Israel from. And that's what the purpose of it. And that's why Israel was one of the first national peoples to give up slavery 1,000 years ago. It's impractical in the end. You're not supposed to depend on it, but you want to bring yourself out of slavery, the nation out of slavery. The things that bind you. You need to break your own shackles and be free.
Yes.
Don't get me started on that. Oh, I could go on forever. Somebody say something. I'm going to shut up for a second.
No, I mean, it definitely. I agree. I mean, the language that it uses is harsh. It's not, it's not exactly poetic. It doesn't sound. It's not something that could be made in a nice TV movie, 6 episodes. Obviously, we can all agree with that. And the one thing that, just to finish off, the beautiful thing about, I think, the Torah, and the beautiful thing about how halacha works, Jewish law works, is that there's always an out. You're never locked into something permanently. There's always a way to get yourself out of it. And so whenever you think things are too far gone and you're too stuck, there's always an option for you to there's always an eject. Go ahead, Brother John. I think Brother John actually wants to, or was it Donald that wanted to chime in?
Speak.
Yeah, that was me. And I was going to say, I think a lot of this has to do with projecting modern day concepts of words onto the Old Testament. So if I say slave in the modern day mindset, they're thinking of American slavery, and American slavery is not Torah. There is not Torah to support modern, American slavery. That just doesn't exist. Interestingly enough, Interestingly enough, the founders put into the U.S. Constitution kind of like what you would call a photobomb, where you kind of like somebody takes a picture and you're kind of there in the background, right, to ruin the whole photo. The founders put into it language that they knew was going to blow up all of the slave owner point of view. One of the first things they put into it was the Declaration of Independence, that all men are created equal. And it wasn't until Dr. Martin Luther came along that he exploited this whole photobomb. And he said, I dream of a day where people can sit at the table, both a black little boy and a white little boy, a white girl and a black girl, can sit at the table and they can see each other based on the concept of their character, not the color of their skin, right? So they put into the Declaration of Independence itself a photobomb that they knew eventually somebody like Dr. King was going to come along. That's my theory.
Brother John has a question. What is the Hebrew word for slave? That would be Eved. An Eved. E-V-E-D? Eved? Is that how you spell it?
Yeah.
Yeah, EVED.
E-V-E-D.
EVED.
Eved. Yes. Slave.
And the reason I call it a photobomb is because I think that at the end of the day, everybody knows, and I think that the Torah writers knew, especially Abraham and and they knew that the individual is the most important thing to God, and so if the individual is more important to God than the government, then any government worth its salt will acknowledge the individual. They will acknowledge the individual, and the individual will be treated as an individual. They will not be put into a group. You will not be judged, right, by whatever. If you're black, you won't be judged by what other black people did. If you're white, you won't be judged by what other white people did. If you're a Jew, you won't be judged by what other Jews did. If you're German, you're not going to be judged by what other Germans did. You will be judged as an individual, and you will stand up on your own two legs at the end of the day. And that's offensive to some people, which is crazy because it shouldn't be. Because Dr. King's entire dream was to see people as individuals.
It's seductive because you're appealing to the ego. It's that you can change the world by submitting to this. And that becomes the message they say to others. You can save the world by giving up your identity.
Right.
And it appeals to the ego that suddenly this utopian idea could work. Yeah. What's worse is we have 100 years of history showing how this doesn't work.
Yeah. And the interesting thing is we see these two different views of the way that we should be governed playing itself out, like right now. Donald Trump, myself, the president of the United States, I said the other day, if you don't like the country, you can leave. And there was a whole bunch of people said, that's racist. You're racist against black people. And I'm like, well, I never mentioned black people in my statement. Why do you think that's racist? I never said anything about anybody's skin color. I just said, it doesn't matter if you're a Jew or white or black or brown or yellow or red. If you don't like the country that you live in, you can go to a different system. But
liberty.
And the thing is that the majority of the people that didn't want him elected said that if he would be elected, they would leave the country. So, but that's not a racist statement.
Yeah. There you go. There you go. Well done.
And I'm sure if they asked, I'm sure Donald Trump would be more than happy to pay for their ticket out of the country.
Oh, I'll pay for it. Yeah,
Dennis Prager went before a finance committee about censorship on social media platforms, in particular Google, that day. Dennis Prager heads up PragerU, which is school of thought online. It's digital. It's not an established Marble Hall place, but really good stuff. And if you get a chance, he gave a 6-minute speech. The man's a fantastic orator. And what they did, I'll just give you an example. One of the contentions he had was that one of his videos of the 10 Commandments was labeled restricted, which means that if you have a porn filter at home, you can't watch it. No school or library can let you watch it. They said the reason why is because it talked about murder. Yes, he talks about murder. That's one of the 10 Commandments. So one of the ideas he said is, look, I'll re-release the video and I'll call it the 9 Commandments, if that makes me feel any better, because then I won't be talking about murder. And it's just a really great speech. I love Dennis Prager. My next book purchase, I plan on getting the Rational Bible series. He released Exodus first. He's gone to Genesis now. He's got 3 more on the way if they're not already here. I don't know. I haven't looked lately. But it's a really great speech. And to know that man's considered, anything is offensive or wrongly taught from that man.
I need to interject something.
Yes,
Good. When Joe McCarthy ran for president against Richard Nixon, his big platform is, well, if the blacks don't like it, I'll ship them all back to Africa. And that's why Nixon won. And he was a Democrat. Yeah, so throwing that in there.
Oh boy. Oof, rough.
Yeah.
Welcome to the room, Rabbi. How are you tonight? Shalom Aleichem.
Shalom Aleichem.
Shalom. What's up?
Your show, you still doing your show tonight, Rabbi, or are you just coming in here?
10 o'clock.
All right. Oof. Double header. So what's the topic?
Can you guys imagine where we would be at without a rule of law that acknowledges the individual? Imagine if you went into a courtroom and somebody was accusing you, and part of the evidence against you was you were part of some group. They would say, "Well, you're white, so that's evidence against you," or "You're black, that's evidence against you." The court of law that we subscribe to, the common law that comes from the British, and I would argue also goes all the way back to and I would argue it goes all the way back to the Torah. The system of law that we subscribe to is that every case is an individual, right? You don't mix cases, right? The idea of saying, well, we had a case a second ago where a black guy got convicted. Are you black too? Or we had a case a second ago where a white guy got convicted. Are you white also? No. Justice is supposed to be blind. That's the entire reason why Lady Justice is blind. That's why she's blindfolded, right? The whole idea is that we treat people as individuals. Our entire system of justice, our entire economic system, is treating people as individuals, and yet these socialist, communist, leftist people. They want to treat you as if you're part of a group. You're not part of a group. You are an individual. You can still be part of a group, but that's
just
voluntary.
the way to get them to. That's just the way for them to gain power. Is all it is. It's words. If you really listen to a lot of the words that they say, it's just a bunch of BS. Like, you can't say colored people, but you can say people of color. Like, really? Right. It's like saying, well, okay, I won't call you an asshole. I'll just call you the hole in my ass.
Nice.
Bandejo. You gotta say bandejo.
There you go.
You gotta say bandejo.
Very good. That's a good one.
Yeah, that was.
Yeah, sometimes it doesn't pay to be the last person on the docket in a drunk driving court either.
Brojo's back. Awesome. Hey, Asher, I got to ask you.
Sure,
you think you could lay off Rabbi Katz since he's never around to defend himself?
I haven't mentioned Rabbi Katz in probably 2 months. I mean, the only time I mentioned him was on this show. And that was the last time.
All right.
But that being said, I mean, he's been contacted, because he
does show up, so leave him alone.
He has mentioned me like on his show too, so.
I add him every week. I want to say for the record, I add him to the groups every time we do a group. Rabbi, whenever you host a room, I add him to here. So he's always here. There's no excuse. He can always hop on.
I think one rule is that if you're teaching something in terms of religion and saying that someone else is wrong, you at least have to be available to dialogue with that person. I mean, it's not like a drive-by insult, right? I mean, this is
Shanhara.
It's been 3 years, though. Can't we just let it go? I mean, I'm not.
No, but he's still teaching his ideology.
There used to be a time where people would say, "Well, that person's not here to defend themselves."
Yeah. So yeah,
Like
he's
that
a
rule
public
doesn't
guy,
exist
man.
anymore.
He's doing his own thing, and people like what he says, and if it makes them better people in their own eye,
Right. Well, in their own eyes, I don't think I ever said anything bad about him as a person.
No, I know, but when you bring it up, or Soul Mazel, or
the ideology. I mean, even Chabad, I never said anything wrong about the Rebbe or Chabad Nicks, but the ideology, right? So it's my ideology against his. You're saying I can't challenge his ideology if he's not in the room, right? I mean, that doesn't.
No, I'm not saying that. I was basically agreeing with you where, if you're going to say something, you should be able to dialogue about it.
Right.
You can't just say something, right, and then just leave it out there. And
you trust me?
It's like farting in a room and then leaving and not having my
students. Like my students typically aren't people who start secretly attacking like people I disagree with on Facebook, like his students do with me. Like all these Noid guys, they're like the brown shirts, where they're like the religious equivalent of the brown shirts.
Ooh.
Where they see whether their teacher is in some way being challenged in a way, and where the teacher gives them a little wink, and these guys just start making up things, start posting stuff, about my personal life. I think anyone who appreciates my teachings acknowledges that my base is ethical monotheism, that I claim to be ethical. I mean, I'm not perfect, okay, but I'm not feeding him a mystical joyride, right?
You can back up your sources.
Right. No, but it's not about religion. I think that people like that, right? I'm not even going to say his name out of respect for James, right? Like people like that don't really care about their students. I just don't think they really care because they're not sharing the same relationship that they have with God with their students, and they're happy like having their students remain in the same spot because there's only so high or so much you can learn as a Noid till you just drop it and become a Buddhist, right? And they know this. They know that it's a dead end, and they do nothing to help them. And I would love to get them on the air and just ask them. And I have. I've chatted with him, not in person, and I asked them, what do you promise your students? And I gave them the sources that show that the whole thing that these people get a share in the world to come is just one opinion. And he's like, I don't even teach that. I don't offer them anything. I teach what I teach, and they take it if they want it. If they don't, and like this attitude is the same attitude that
he's under fire by a lot more people than you. I mean, it was really hard to have a civil conversation with anybody at that particular time. 3 years ago, that was drama at fucking city, man.
Oh man, don't you know it?
Well, this was before that.
I was like, yeah, this is where and I signed up for it, so I wasn't going to run away. But turn me off all the nitpicking and the. No,
this is before that. This is before everyone came up against him, and I even made a video defending him. Saying that all these guys are. I don't know if you saw that called with the Gayer Wars.
He loved it. Everybody loved it. Every Gayer loved you saying it too. Everybody
right. Well,
you saying it.
No, well, it's because these guys. They devour themselves. That's the thing, and they're all, like, I don't think they're intellectually honest. They don't even know why they're doing it, but they're just trying to make a name for themselves. Here, look, I've given up more. I've committed religious social suicide for Gentiles, right? I mean, because I converted.
Yeah, but they come in here and say I'm mediocre too, and that shit's got to go, man. I'm not a mediocre guy. There is nothing. I am no less dignified than anybody, and even the Rambam says, like a Kohen Gadol. Okay, I think that's pushing it, in my personal opinion, but I'm not second class. I'm not mediocre.
I think you're ethical. I mean, I think you're very ethical in spite of the Noid laws.
There's a whole freaking planet out here that's not Israel. They're not going to be Israel. They will never be Israel. There will be 70 primordial nations. It's not going to. You can't make. I mean, we can think planet Israel. It's never going to be that. There will always be non-Jews who come to Israel.
Israel is not a religious identity. That's the thing. Being in the covenant is. So being in the covenant means being obedient to the one true ethical God. Like whether you're Israel, whether you're Puerto Rican, whether you're Mexican, okay, if you're keeping his commandments, you're in the covenant. But then if some rabbi is going to pop up and say, no, you're a Gentile, be proud of being a Gentile. No, you're in the covenant. Like, why doesn't he just say that you're in that Torah covenant? You're in the same covenant that the mixed multitude were under, that the Hebrews were under. This is all Chabad talk. Israel, I'm a Jew, you're a Jew. That's not Torah talk. There's no such thing as a Jew in Torah, right? There's people in the covenant, and yeah, there's Israelites, but you could be an Israelite and not be in the covenant, right? I mean, look at Herod, look at all the wicked kings of Israel. They were Israelites, but not in the covenant, right? So don't be proud to be a Gentile.
You can't say that, though.
If you're
with the whole Holocaust thing that happened now, it's, Mizrahi said it. He pointed it out, that Jews are really the ones who are in the covenant, and the ones who are outside really are not. But you just can't say that post-Holocaust.
I don't know. I'm on another angle, man. I'm going to say that in Israel, these people are Ben Noach, and that God says that there is an eternal covenant. So it is Israel's responsibility to make sure that so I don't know what
there's no eternal covenant like with Gerim, like nowhere.
Gerim, it's with all humanity, for all your descendants until the earth endures no more.
That he shouldn't destroy like the planet with water. So that's not a covenant to keep 7 laws.
But he's still under a covenant, whatever the covenant may be. That's it. It's not really made that clear, is it? But it's there.
No, it's very clear. God made an agreement with humanity that he's not gonna, drown us on anymore. That's all. I mean, I don't know how, like what rabbi went and ran with that. Yeah, but
I'm still waiting for an opening. And everything that you just said, is going to trigger a lot of people, and I'm still waiting for an opening. But when you said that the concept of people who can be inside of the covenant, even if they're not Israeli, that's going to trigger a lot of people. And I agree with you. I agree with you about that. But I'm just saying, as soon as you said that, I knew that the temperature level was going from here to there.
Oh, but I'm not trying to please people here. I mean, I'm trying to call things how they are.
I'm not saying that you are. But I'm just saying, and I agree with you, but the reason I avoid saying things like you just said, even though I agree with you, because I know that once I say things like that, the temperature level goes from here to here.
Oh, I'm a martyr. I'm a living martyr.
Okay.
I got big shoulders, baby.
I had one of Rabbi Mizrahi, Rabbi Reuben's students come over to my channel today and called me an apostate and I should delete my channel. I should take a nice long walk off.
Really?
Hey,
wow. Who is that?
It's a day in the service. It's just a day in the service of doing the Lord's will. That's all.
All right.
You know what, Jay?
Wow.
Well, but you said that after the Holocaust, we can't say what?
Oh, that was an interesting statement. Say that again?
Yeah, post-Holocaust, you can't really say there's a distinction between a religious Jew and a non-religious Jew.
Why? Because only Hitler? I mean, because Hitler, gets to decide who's a religious Jew and who's not a religious Jew?
No, because it strikes an emotional chord.
Trust me. I mean, is there something that you can't say that won't piss Jews off? I mean, honestly, somebody's going to get pissed off in the Jewish people.
No, 20 years. As an outsider, I can tell you this. No. Some Jews
going to get pissed off, and the vast majority of Jews aren't even religious.
Just about like anybody else.
And I've heard this many times. Oh, well, Hitler didn't distinguish, this and that. First of all, if you read Mein Kampf, and now, but this is probably going to get knocked off of YouTube now because I said this. If you read Mein Kampf straight through, Hitler didn't hate Jews because they wore boxes in their heads and they were so ethical and they were keeping Torah. He says specifically why he hated those Jews, because they were communists and they were the ones who had the white slave trade in Germany. The pornography industry was spearheaded by Jews in Germany, right? And he didn't want what happened in the Soviet Union.
That's
the Russian Revolution to happen in Germany.
This is exactly what Mein Kampf says. It's technically what it said, yeah.
I agree with you a second ago, but that's not why he hated the Jews.
Fair enough. But why were religious Jews slaughtered then?
because Gentiles cannot tell the difference between a religious Jew and a secular Jew. They think that they're identifying as Jews, they must all believe in Judaism.
They think
For example,
being Irish and not rather than being Cherokee.
well, here, look, with David Duke cannot make a distinction between a secular Jew and a religious Jew. But he thinks that all secular Jews study Talmud and are part of some conspiracy to take over the world, right? It's because well, they think in a Gentile, like from a Gentile perspective, if you have a Christian calling himself a Christian, it means that he believes in Christ, right? If a Jew calls himself a Jew, it means that he identifies with the God of Israel and the covenant. And that's not the case because the vast majority of Jews are atheists. I think the last poll that was taken was 54% of ethnic Jews classify themselves as atheists, right? You know, so Gentiles cannot tell the difference. I mean, I can't tell the difference. I mean, nowadays, most Orthodox Jews, especially modern Orthodox Jews, don't wear black hats and don't handle up, like they don't have long beards, right? So it's not a, or payas. Well, payas. I mean, almost no Jew has that. I mean, that's just a picture you always see. But outside of Israel or Borough Park in Williamsburg, you're not going to see people with payas. But it's. So why did Hitler hate Jews then?
They own the banks? Well, what's the answer?
You read Mein Kampf. I guess you would know. I haven't read
But you guys could look it up yourself. Now, there is one book.
Now, he hated Jews. He hated Jews because he blamed them for the fall of Germany after World War I.
Okay.
He held them
because they were communists.
Solely responsible.
Because they ran the labor unions and they actually took over Munich. And what they were trying to do to Germany, what they did to Russia.
Hang on. Whoa. Did you just say that he blamed them because they were communists?
Correct.
No, they were not. No, they were not.
Jews weren't communist?
No, not after World War I. No.
Yeah.
Overwhelmingly. What are you talking about, Donald?
You got to study history, man.
I mean, look at the Bolsheviks, the Mensheviks, the Russian Revolution. I mean, Trotsky, Karl Marx, like Frederick Engels. I mean, these are all Jews, right? I mean, the vast majority of Jews were communists, just like the vast majority of Jews today are on the left, right? Not religious Jews. I mean, secular Jews. Even Winston Churchill.
What Japhethites do to Jews, just to know what you like. Once you live around Nordics and Gauls and you're Jewish, eventually you're going to come up with
I tell you what. I will research it. All right,
no problem. Anyone who's listening to me could go to Google right now and type in Winston Churchill, communist atheistical Jews. He makes a statement about the Jews who caused the Soviet Union to collapse, or the people who caused them to collapse. He called them communist atheistical Jews, right?
Hang on.
He made a distinction between religious Jews.
Hang on. But now we're talking about Jews who are also atheists.
Correct.
So we're not talking about Torah Jews.
Oh, obviously.
Well,
no,
doesn't the Rambam say?
We're talking about ethnic. This is part of the confusion that I'm running into. Right. You have to remember when you say Jew, it's both an ethnicity.
Right, and this is why the rabbi's right that non-Jews can't tell the difference. Right here, but this is.
Let him finish. Let him finish, please.
No, he's onto something. Go ahead, ma'am.
Right. This is a Jew can be both ethnic Jew and a religious Jew. You can be born ethnic Jewish, or you can be converted to Judaism, even if you weren't born an ethnic Jew. So when you say atheistic Jew, what I hear is an atheist. Because an atheist doesn't care about your ethnicity.
Right.
I think
Jewishness as an ethnic Jew, you might care about it. But if you're an atheist, atheism is an ideology. An ethnic Jew is not.
Yeah.
Right? So if you.
Oh, that's what we're saying. That's what we're saying, Donald.
Just say the atheists caused
people like Hitler. That's right, Donald. People like Hitler couldn't.
Don't say the Jews. Just
right, but that's what the rabbi's saying,
Right,
Donald. The rabbi's saying that these people, most non-Jews, can't distinguish this. This is what he's trying to say. That it's just to us, it's just a Jew anyway.
Well,
atheist,
on the same note, the Rambam does say if you renounce Torah, you turn your back on God, you cannot claim the term Israelite any longer.
Jews nowadays break, like the Rambam all the time. But people like Bernie Sanders, Larry David, Seinfeld, all these guys don't believe in God and still identify as Jews. The problem is that religious Jews also call them Jews. So when they start to misbehave, it's the religious Jews, the ones who actually look Jewish, who basically die for the sins of the secular Jews. Not in some mystical sense. It's just when the anti-Semites come or when the Gentiles come to for payback, but they're going to attack the person who actually looks Jewish. I mean, it's not an anti-Semitic statement I'm saying. It's a tragic notion in the Jewish world.
Yeah, it's fact of life.
I mean, how many times? Right. How many times do we get questions from people? Rabbi, you have to deal with these questions. James, we all have to deal with these questions. What about these people that are bombing Arabs and Palestinians? We deal with this. We have to deal with it. What they were doing. What we have to respond. We have to defend. I mean, it's a real ongoing thing. We know it firsthand.
But there is a danger, in my opinion. There is a danger when religious Jews don't identify that distinction. Because if they accept everybody as Jews, when the shit goes down the toilet, they're going to blame all Jews.
Yeah, but here's the thing. Then you're going to have one religious Jewish guy or rabbi who's got some crazy ideas, who's going to condemn somebody who, let's just say, 2/3 of the rest of the religious Jewish population in America would disagree with. But then we would have this condemnation going. You know what I'm saying? It would get.
I have a question. To give Rabbi Mizrahi credit, I mean, he constantly makes that distinction, and he actually said the same thing. If you go on his channel and type in Jewish communist, he says the same thing, that the Holocaust happened because Jews were communists, right? So he does make a distinction, but it's really Kabbalah. You know, groups like Chabad who believe that what makes you Jewish is not what you believe or how you behave, but the soul within you. It's Kabbalah that has gotten mystical Jews to say that it doesn't matter if you're an atheist, it doesn't matter if you're a Buddhist. I guess it does matter if you're a Christian, but it's a huge double standard there. All right, but you're still a Jew and you're the apple of God's eye. That's what Kabbalah teaches. Now the Torah, I mean, it doesn't separate the world like that. Yes, you could be an Israelite, but like reside in the land of Israel. That's what Jew really means, right? I mean, Jew means technically Israelite and not be in the covenant, right? I mean, Herod, all these guys who weren't Torah keeping them, they were Israelites, but they weren't in a covenant with God. And you could technically be in a covenant with God and not be an Israelite. Because if any of you guys accept the Torah, like those guys in Mount Sinai did, and they entered the covenant, like why should God exclude you from the covenant? I mean, only because Israel doesn't want to accept you? I mean, Israel doesn't have a monopoly on God.
I would go back to the first statement.
Naaman is a perfect example.
Yeah, Donald, go ahead. Sorry.
I would go back to the first statement that started all this controversy. And the statement that started all the controversy is when you said you can be in the covenant,
right,
and not be an Israelite.
Correct.
You can be outside of the covenant and still be an Israelite. Correct. Once you said that, it started all the controversy, and we've been arguing ever since. And that discussion, that point of view, is the thing that I've noticed as a Christian who considers himself a Jew, who was not born a Jew, right, is the big point of issue. Because I am claiming to be a Jew, even though I wasn't born one. I'm claiming to be grafted into the tree and still be a Jew. And there are many of my Jewish friends who say, no, you didn't get permission from this guy or that guy, right? Mm. Nobody in the Jewish community ever gave you permission to claim that you're a Jew. And they look at my eyes, they say, you look more like an Asian. And I say, don't you understand that you can be in the covenant? This is such a big part of Christianity. So as soon as you said that, I knew that it was going to create all hell and there was going to be all kinds of controversy. And that's why.
We're not arguing, though. We're just discussing.
That problem is more as something that arises out of mystical Judaism, and Christianity is really a form of mystical Judaism. In other words, they think that being Jewish means automatically being special to God by definition. right? Because you exist, you deserve love and appreciation from God, not because of what you do. It's not your deeds that distinguish you.
That's not what Christianity believes.
Well, saying that you're grafted into Israel instead of
Yeah.
saying whether you're actually making a
Grafted
covenant with
into
God
like
means that you're
adopted.
saying that
Adopted.
being Israel by definition is special.
Oh yeah, it's definitely special. But
All right,
but
so
you're
Bernie Sanders is head and
idea,
shoulders
the
above you
idea.
spiritually?
Well, if he's an apostate, if we look at it like the Rambam tells us, he would be an apostate. We should look at him as a Jewish
the
apostate.
idea is Bernie Sanders has never claimed to be adopted or in the covenant, right? So I consider myself both adopted and part of that covenant because I was adopted into the covenant. Bernie Sanders has never acknowledged that he sees himself as adopted or in the covenant that God
He usually
made.
runs away the fact that he's Jewish. He usually tries to dodge it and he tries to push it under the table.
Sure.
And we have
All right,
to
so let's talk about
that
someone who is an ethnic Jew who lives in the land of Israel, who's physically a citizen of the state of Israel, right? Who identifies with Israel, perhaps like with the Reform movement, whether you could actually be part of the Reform movement and not even believe in God. Would you consider this individual Israel? Or are you saying that anyone who calls themselves Israel, who doesn't keep the Torah, is not actually Israel?
it's kind of like the
Well,
Indian.
I don't judge. I don't judge people. I don't judge people. First of all,
I would have to go to.
Come on, man. You've been judging this whole time. Saying that Bernie Sanders is not a Jew is a form of judging, huh?
No, I'm saying
I judge also.
What I'm doing is I'm giving the standards of judgment without being the judge himself.
If I wanted to know somebody was
I think there is a standard. I think there is a standard of judgment that I can defend without actually judging on those standards, right? So if I say you're innocent, if you can qualify. Hang on. If I can say you're innocent, if you can qualify for X, Y, and Z, I'm not claiming to be the judge. I'm just agreeing that here are the qualifications for being innocent. So,
for Sage, we understand. James wants to say something.
Sure.
If you want to know who's Cherokee, you go to the Cherokee. That's how I see Israel. If you want to know who's Jewish, you have to go to the nation. When God speaks to Israel in Torah, most of the time he talks to them He talks to them in singular. Yeah. You shall be a holy people unto me. You. That's one. That's unity. That's
that's Israel. Yeah, but if you want to know it, if you're in the covenant, then you go straight to God.
I don't know about in the covenant bit because then we're going to have to go in on an individual denim basis. We have to individual by person by person by person. Or do you really believe? Or are you believing in heretical teachings? And then Israel should be Israel. I think to any non-Jew, whether you consider yourself a Noahide or a Ger or grafted, whatever, there has to be a distinction of the nation. There has to be some kind of mark. There has to be a line. This is Israel. I
agree.
This is not. And doesn't mean doesn't mean that because it's not holy, it's not good. It's just not separated. So there has to be some.
I agree. There should be some separation. I agree. There should be some separation. I agree that there should be something holy. There should be something set apart. There should be some line. And what I'm saying, and what my friend here said that started all of the controversy, is that I think the line is, are you part of the covenant or not? And to be part of the covenant means that you can be, as a Christian, this is my Christian theology, you can be adopted into the covenant, but you do it voluntarily, and you don't do it through some authority figure except for the high priest. The high priest can adopt you or give you the covenant that you are now a Jew.
But the Torah doesn't say this.
Theology, in the Christian theology, the high priest is the Messiah, and I believe that Jesus is the Messiah. So I believe that I have the authority of the high priest to claim to be a Jew as an adopted son.
Mm-hmm. Okay. All right, so being Jewish, according to you, means automatically being in a covenant, right?
Yes.
Okay,
the religious side of Judaism not the ethnic side, but the religious side of Judaism means you are in the covenant. You subscribe to Torah. You worship the God of Abraham and Isaac and Israel, right? This is the religious side of Judaism, not the ethnic side.
Mm-hmm. All right. Fine. Go next topic.
Yeah, like you're so like indifferent to that.
Joel.
No, I'm not going to argue the New Testament. I mean, he believes this is.
Right.
I mean,
It's nonsense.
I'm not going to argue
yeah.
his religion. I mean, he
Right.
believes it in faith, and I'm sure that's like what the New Testament teaches. With the Torah itself, doesn't really teach it like that. But Christianity
Well, give us
is
the
a
kosher
religion.
perspective, Rabbi. Give us the
For
kosher.
the kosher, I mean, for those who don't believe in Christianity, if you're a Christian, then the kosher perspective is Christianity, right? I mean, according to the Torah, the high priest has no say on who enters a covenant with God.
That's
okay, right? Now, the high priest was part of the ruling body in terms of what would be your punishment for breaking Shabbat or for breaking any of the laws in the Torah. It says, right, we quoted a million times Deuteronomy chapter 17, with it, if a case comes up for judgment, that you take it to the priest, to the Levite, to the judge of those days. Fine. It seems that Judaism really doesn't have a middleman. That whether it's the high priest that Christianity teaches is an image of Jesus, right? I mean, within the 5 books of Moses, one could go directly to God no matter where you are. If you enter into that covenant in the way that the Hebrews and the mixed multitude enter that covenant right now, I mean, it sounds like an altar call, right? If you decide to take upon yourself these commandments, you enter into an agreement with God, aka a covenant, an agreement that I will walk in your ways and you will be my God. That's it. That's it. And I have Isaiah 56 pulled up here. And well.
Go ahead, read. Go, please.
Go preach. It says it says in the foreigner who binds themselves to the Lord. This is now the JPS version, right? What to minister to him, to love the name of the Lord, to be his servants, all who keep the Sabbath without desecrating it, and hold fast to my covenant. Right? This is the Torah covenant, right? Now, ideally it should be the same, but Israel is on a very low state. Israel has a lot of problems, right? And I'm not gonna subject my relationship with God because Jews can't get their act together. I'm not gonna wait and call myself then anything other than being in the covenant just because Jews can't agree on something, right? I don't want a watered down, filtered relation with God, and that's what they want you to have. That's what the Christian wanted you to have with Jesus, and that's what the Jew wants you to have through Noah or 7 laws. No, give me uncut. I don't want to buy, whatever, like weed, like cut with oregano. Give me the uncut kitty cat.
Want that heroin?
That's it. Chronic, brother.
500 cc's of Torah right to the vein, baby. That's what I want.
Like 2 pillowcases full of weed. You know what I mean? That's how that ties into this. Let's celebrate.
Brother John in the side post put in there, Moses is in the middleman. Moses was a middleman, no?
Oh, for sure. Moses was a middleman in transmitting the law, but he's not a middleman like within. In other words, we don't pray to Moses to get validation like through him to God, right?
Yeah, he left his Torah. Torah should be the only.
Yeah, no, we appreciate what he did for us, but he's not the middleman.
Right, the Torah is the only middleman, if there's a middleman.
Go straight to God, no matter where you're at, right now, right? You guys could commit yourself to walking in God's ways. God so loved the world that he gave us a higher standard to aspire to, right? I mean, he didn't leave us to crawl on the ground like an animal ethically, but now that we can aspire to greater things. It's so liberating. Coño. Be happy, that we're jolly green giants like marching the earth with machine guns.
Denise, my lady, good evening. How are you? Good to see you. Thanks for coming in. Just wanted to throw you a shout out and welcome you in.
And I feel bad for Donald now because that says I didn't want him to feel that we were jumping. That's why I told him that it's kosher for him to believe this and that, but it's just
No,
I mean, he doesn't know.
I don't think
He entered the lines then, you know.
No, I think
I have
it's
a
right
question.
for us to. Let me just say this one thing. I think it's fair. I mean, if he's going to come in here and tell us that it's JC or bus, and we have an obligation to push back a little bit on that. Go ahead, brother.
Yeah, I was just wondering, have you guys ever asked yourself, like with God speaking to Moses on Mount Sinai through the bush, you ever ask yourself, what do you think it'd be more effective if he did that in front of all of Israel right there at the bottom of the mountain, or have some more people coming up? I mean, I'm just trying to think, like, it always seems to be some person alone comes, hanging out with God and comes back with a message, and then all these people believe him. And I don't think, like, if in this day and age, say, if there's something like that, we wouldn't believe some guy who went up to the mountain. We was like, oh, maybe he's on some drugs or something. But would you have a question? Maybe it would have been more effective to have the burning bush, God speaking through the burning bush in front of everybody.
Okay, well, first of all, God spoke to the entire congregation, everybody, the multitude that was there. And every time he spoke, they died. And he had to bring them back to life. And he spoke again, and they died. And they said, whoa, wait a minute. We're tired of dying. Talk through Moses.
Yeah, the Torah didn't say that. Torah didn't say that.
What we got to look at is how he Pharaoh.
Everybody, stop on my show. I'm leaving now. Give up my show. All right. Take it easy.
Bye. It's about how he relates to Pharaoh, because Aaron becomes a prophet at that point to Moses. So he's meeting Pharaoh on his own ground. This is what I was taught when I asked it or inquired. He had to meet Pharaoh on his own level so that Pharaoh would get what's coming to him on an eye-to-eye basis with Moses. And the Israelite people called out to God. That's why, but it was Moses, I think personally, now this is a personal thing I'm getting at here now. I think Moses' compassion is what sent him back. It was Moses' compassion and curiosity. And, I think that attained an audience, if you will, with the burning bush. But this was about making Egypt pay for what they had done, as well as getting his people out. Because he could have just frozen time or whatever. He'd done it, he does it later, but he could have done whatever. But Egypt had to pay as a nation for what they did as a nation against his nation, kind of a thing.
Right.
That's how I was explained. That's how it was explained to me. Why did it take one man? When it could, that's how. I don't know, but that's what I was taught. It's not explicitly in Torah.
Well, it wasn't just Moses; it was Moses and Aaron.
Yeah, so technically, it was Aaron doing all the talking, and Moses just stood back and looked tough.
There you go.
All right, are we gonna go migrating over the rabbi's channel, or we're gonna? Looks like everyone's dropping like flies over here.
It's about to end the normal 2-hour nightly broadcast. Anyway. Yeah. Any final words on the Parsha or discussion, or just for posterity? I've said it before. I'll say it again. Brother John was one of those who participated with us throughout the years. We've been doing this 5-6 years now. We're going on 6 years, I guess. And it's been a wild ride, man. I know Google's under pressure, and we've got, and there's been some stuff happening that's bringing scrutiny upon them. But I can't knock them for the Hangouts, man. We'll do another last episode next week. But, thanks, YouTube. Thanks, Google. Really. Okay. You had something here. And if you get something on the consumer end, or if we can broadcast this and make it a live event like we've been doing, I would.
It might not be over. Who knows? You never know. Right?
It's been a ride, man. This is one of the greatest tools. Best kept secrets in many ways. we have on the web is these little 10 people at a time hangouts where the world can converse with itself in real time for posterity. The world can see it too.
Right.
Yeah. It's pretty cool.
All right, we'll stop the live broadcast here. Anybody have any last words? Anything you want to say? Please feel free.
Shabbat shalom.
Yeah, my last words is let's not let we give it too much on Bernie Sanders. I think we were a little hateful on him tonight, and he's not that bad of a guy. Bruce Springsteen and Larry David, he's not too bad either.
And Kabbalists aren't so bad either, because if it wasn't for them, I wouldn't have come to Torah. So we can say we want to, but if it wasn't for that, that's another topic. I might have to bring that. Might be the theme of next week's final hangout.
All right, I'll see you on the Rabbi saying.
Well,
James, you coming over?
All right. We'll see.
Okay. I was gonna have to say if no matter what you believe, just do the right thing. Be good to one another. That's what it's about. I think.
Amen.
All right.
Yeah.
That's perfect. Aaron, anything that can you add to anything? Can you add to that? All right. I guess not. We'll be back next week, y'all. I would promote the show, but there's not going to be one after next week. So, Shabbat Shalom. Be excellent to each other and party on, dudes.
Right on.